G'day, welcome. Ain't they pretty? What we're looking at there is the Spyderco, Tenacious and its siblings. These are the Spyderco knives that are made in China, and they're basically all great knives. As you can see, I've got all four, so I thought it might be interesting just to have a quick look at them, not so much as an individual knife review on each one. You can find that certainly in other places around on YouTube. Down the track I may do an individual review on each knife, but then again I might not do. So starting up the top here, we've got the littlest of the group, the baby, which is the Ambitious. It runs a 2¼ inch blade, 57mm blade. Weight on that one is 3.1 ounces or 87 grams. The next one down the heading list here is the Persistence. It runs a 2¾ inch blade, which is 70mm in the metric system. The weight on that one is 3.7 ounces or 103 grams. And we step up to the next one. This was in fact the first of the series to be produced. This is the Tenacious, very well known knife. Blade 3 3/8 of an inch or 86mm. The weight on the Tenacious is 4.2 ounces, 119 grams. And down here we've got the big daddy of the whole set. At least up till now, unless Spyderco makes one bigger, and I don't know that they should or would. Resilience, it runs a 4¼ inch blade, which is 108mm. It's a monster. The weight on it is full 5 ounces, which is 140 grams. Massive fold, the biggest one in my collection. So yeah, family tree on these ones. First was the Tenacious, as mentioned. It came out some time ago, sold well, good reviews. Spyderco then brought out two extra knives, which was the Persistence and the Resilience. Most of us probably thought that would be it, but a little bit while down the track they snuck in another one on us, which is the little baby Ambitious. Now I actually wasn't going to buy that because I thought, what on earth do I want a knife that small for? But the temptation got the better of me, and to complete the set I bought it. And actually, really glad I did. But just have a quick look at them. As you probably guys already know, these are all LinerLock knives. They're, bring this one up for the Resilience. You can see they're the LinerLock. They're an open pillar construction. And you can see down in there, they run stainless steel liners which have been drilled out, so reducing a little bit of weight in them. That's common across all the knives. This particular one, as you can see, black clip, as are the other two up there, and this one's not. Why? Well, that's because I painted the other clips. This is actually how they come. They've got a like a satin finish chrome clip on them. I'm going to leave this one because this little knife, as we'll talk about in a minute, I tend to just carry in my pocket, not on the pocket clip. And there's another reason, but I'll get into that. It's more philosophical. The other ones, I basically just like black clips, so all I did was grab my sand off a fine grade sandpaper, masked the knife up. I did find it better to do it on the knife, and just sprayed it with some high temperature engine, matte black engine type paint, or satin black I think. And I think you'll agree, they came up pretty good. The only one I had a bit of trouble with was this one. I don't think it quite dried, there might have been a grease or something on there. But that's no big deal, I can always redo it, but it doesn't bother me. It's just I prefer the clips that way. I was going to talk about why I've suddenly become a fan of the little Ambitious. Until recently, my EDC knife for work, and I should say I work in an environment which is basically an office most of the time, was this knife here, which is a K-bar dozer folding hunter. Now I used to use this a lot at work, and I'll probably still carry it again, but people used to be, oh, you know, you're carrying a weapon, you're carrying a blade, you know, you're some sort of maniac. Well, people, unfortunately, at least over here where I live, tend to see knives as weapons, not as tools. And I'd explain this to people because I think it's, you know, part of our role if we're into knives to convince people that knives are in fact not a dangerous, horrible thing. We use them every day. Every single person uses them. It's a perception. Interestingly enough, I've recently decided I need to carry this one around a bit to get some experience on it and try it. So I've been carrying this as my work knife, and I have not had that reaction with this little knife. When it's folded up, like so, especially with the chrome clip, this one I'm going to leave it chrome, it's such a cute little thing. It's so small, it almost looks like a piece of jewellery. And it even opened up, it doesn't have that, I guess some people see that, even though I don't, this is a drop point, I think that's a normal shaped blade. Some people see that as a long dagger shaped blade. Whereas I suspect the broader shape on this thing, and the sheer fact that it's so small, at only 2¼ inches, it's not perceived as a threatening thing. So that's really interesting. I'll keep an eye on it and see how it goes. I haven't sort of asked why people have reacted different. It's just been an interesting observation. So I'll put it back there. What I think is really interesting about this series of knives, there's a number of interesting factors. Firstly, can I just say the build quality is really very, very high. which is, some people may be surprised by that, being they're a Chinese import. You shouldn't be. The steel's excellent, HCR 13 MOV, which is a very good steel. As I mentioned, 4 flat grind. They come very, very sharp, wickedly sharp. I've also found that with the 4 flat grind, very easy to put an edge on, and they seem to have good edge retention. But the interesting thing for me is that I've been thinking about these knives, and I see them now as not so much individual knives, but as a knife system. And what I mean by that is that a person who possibly isn't going to want to have a lot of knives, they're not a fanatical knife collector, maybe they want one, say 2, maybe even 3 knives, well, possibly 4. They want something that they can just carry for any situation they find themselves in and any sort of use. For example, I have this one for around the office. The Persistence, EDC. Same for the Tenacious, slightly bigger but still an EDC. Whereas the big Resilience, probably limited in its usage, but certainly camp knife, excellent for food preparation. In fact, I've been using this in the kitchen at home. It's actually better than most of our kitchen knives. In fact, it's better than all of our kitchen knives. So there's a sort of a flavour for every occasion. For a person who hasn't got a lot of money to spend, the value on these is where they're looking. They're going to look at this kind of market. And maybe they would say, all right, I'll have a Tenacious for my EDC for around on the weekends, but at work, where I'm cutting a few box tape and a few letters, maybe I'll have the little Ambitious or possibly the Persistence. Maybe I want this one for when I go camping, and I'll have a Persistence for at work, for those small everyday tasks. Maybe you'll buy 3. You could buy all 4. The great benefit of this, as I see it, is A, they're affordable. You can afford to buy more than one. And the other great thing is they're all working the same deployment system and the same mechanism. So you've got commonality in how you carry a knife and how you deploy your knife and how your knife locks up. So there's that familiarity. Every one of these knives will operate and feel similar. There are differences, of course, which we might just talk about very quickly. Spyderco didn't just shrink these knives down. I was watching an interview, I think it was on Nut and Fancy's channel, with one of the gentlemen from Spyderco, and as he quite rightly pointed out, you couldn't just say shrink this handle shape down because it needs to fit the hand. So there are these subtle differences, even though you can see there's a family resemblance. And even the little one here, very, very comfortable in your hand and nice to use. Quite a surprise actually, because this is a very small knife. And then when you pick the big one up, you can actually sense that family resemblance. They have the jimping, the thumb ramp. Jimping on these is excellent, by the way. The only thing I can say downside on the small knife that I have found is the deployment on this one wasn't as good as the others. It actually feels a little bit tight and gritty. If I give it a bit of a flick, I can usually get it to open. It doesn't bother me, but it locks up nice and tight. The other ones, the deployment's excellent, particularly the big Resilience, and I suspect there's a little bit involved there in the sheer length and the weight in that blade. The longer the blade, it just tends to fly out. At least that's been my experience. That's the Resilience. Tenacious, I've messed that up. My apologies, try it again. Nothing wrong with that. Down to the Persistence. Very slick. And let's try this one again, see if I can get it to work for a bit of a wrist flick. No. Having a bad day. Give it up. That's what happens when you're in front of the camera. As I say, it does feel a little bit gritty on the pivot. I have oiled it. I may even end up pulling that one down just to see if there might be something in there. But I suspect the factor is simply that there's just not so much weight out front to carry that blade out when you're deploying it. Anyway, this video's probably already gone on longer than it should have. These knives, all good. I know some people possibly don't like the fact that there's Spyderco perhaps are making import knives and they should all have the United States product, but I think it needs to be recognised that in today's market they do need to have these entry-level knives. They do carry the traditional Spyderco quality, and a lot of people will ramp up and they'll be looking at buying your Delicas, your Enduras and other sorts of knives along that line once they've got into the Spyderco brand. I know I've become a real Spyderco convert in recent times. Their product's excellent. The other great thing, and I should have mentioned it earlier, budget knife, yeah, but every single one of these things, from the big Resilience down to the little Ambitious down here, I love this about them, 4-corner option for that clip position. So you can position for tip up, tip down, and if you're left and right handed, or left or right handed I should say, Spyderco's got you there, got you covered. And I just think for have that across the whole range on knives of this price point is absolutely stunning, and I love that about them. Any one of these knives, or any 2 or 3 or even 4 of these knives, you'll be very happy for your purchase. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's gone a bit longer than it was meant to, but that's how it is when you're talking knives. Have a great day. Bye for now.